I have been playing a good amount of The Witcher 3. I just did the video on the main channel trying The Witcher 3 again with a character creator. Recommend you go check that out because a modder did some great work on that. But I wanted to think back and I was like, Witcher 3, one of my favorite games ever. A lot of these games that are, have been announced ahead of time, they end up looking a good bit different. So I was like, I wonder what The Witcher 3 looked like when it first came out. Look at this. Look at this. This is the original debut gameplay trailer. Okay, so this isn't the cinematic reveal. This isn't anything like that. This is the debut gameplay trailer. This was uploaded June 10th of 2013. Okay, 2013. 11 years ago. And this is what the game looked like. Now, again, this is a gameplay trailer. And we all know what The Witcher 3 looked like when it came out. And we know what the game looks like now and all of that. And this is the gameplay trailer. Immediately, it looks a good bit different. These fire effects wouldn't end up actually being with the game when it would come out. These would be toned down a lot. So these were altered heavily. This is back to the cinematic trailer that we saw, but then they're going to cut back to gameplay. Now this Geralt model looks much closer to The Witcher 2 that they did. So they did some like total rework of his model in the year and a half after this trailer came out. Like they redid a lot of this and I don't know why. I would love to know why, but they redid a lot of this back in the day. Oh, the music. Like the NPCs look the same. And a lot of the environments look about on par. But honestly, Geralt in this trailer, I think looks worse. I think a lot of this was generally improved. Shots like this, you don't actually see hardly ever in The Witcher 3 because the map is so flat. And part of the reason they did that was so sightlines wouldn't be too crazy long, so the engine wouldn't struggle too much with it. It's why there's so much like forest everywhere you go. You can't really see more than 100 feet in front of you until you get to like Skellige, and then there's some areas where it opens up, but generally it's very, very flat. But you see they're opening this up, multi-region open world. That's one of my main like bucket list, not even bucket list, one of my wish list items for whatever The Witcher 4 looks like is that we get the true open world where there aren't any zones, there's no loading between zones, it's just totally open. And after Cyberpunk, I think we do get that. But look at this. Again, fire effects were totally redone before launch. Geralt it's like this stuff, very recognizable. I think they did a lot of post-processing in this trailer with like depth of field. You can see off in the distance, the cliffs are super blurred out. Same with the buildings in the distance. That didn't really end up being a thing in the final release. I don't believe they had the depth of field cranked anywhere near that high in the final retail version, and certainly not on console. There's also this like color palette shift where they were doing this, it's almost like a 2008 color filter where everything's just kind of yellowish green. And again, The Witcher 2 had that same vibe, but The Witcher 3 ended up getting rid of that and leaning into much more vibrant color, much brighter, much more lively. And I like the final look of The Witcher 3 much more than like this. This is very, very flat and just kind of lifeless. I love the vibrancy of the final port or the final release. Some of this stuff, a crowning achievement of the RPG genre. Oh, hey, Geralt. Yeah, look at that. Just so much. Yeah, I mean, the best thing you can say about it is that it looks like The Witcher 2.
Some fight for glory, justice, or gold. I fight for those I hold dear. I'm Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher.
And then when we would eventually get the game, of course, people ate it up. People loved it. But one of the things that also is forgotten about the launch of The Witcher 3 was how buggy it was. Like it was very, very, very buggy back in the day when it first dropped. And let me see if I can find like an OG post about it. Let's see. Roto looks like he did a compilation. Like there were just all sorts of weird problems. The most common one was with Roach. Roach, when you would call her in, would just like spawn on top of trees, on top of buildings, so you couldn't get to her. And there were just all sorts of weird little bugs and stuff like that that plagued the game. And eventually they kind of doubled down on it, and they ended up adding a Gwent card for Roach standing on top of buildings and stuff. But yeah, The Witcher 3 did not launch super polished. There were a lot of bugs when it came out. What's interesting about The Witcher 3, though, is that it launched in May of 2015, if I remember correctly. And people loved it. You know, it reviewed really well. People ate it up. But a lot of people that had not gotten into like that side of things didn't really engage with it quite yet. They waited, and it was actually after the release of Fallout 4 that we saw a huge surge of people getting into The Witcher 3 for the first time. And I think it's because a lot of people were disenfranchised from from Fallout 4, from how lackluster it was as an RPG. As a looter shooter open world adventure game, it's pretty good, but yeah, there we go. But as an RPG, it was really, really rough. And then we see like The Witcher 3 come along, and it's just polar opposite in so many ways. So I think people then really connected with it and started eating it up. And by then the game had been patched a lot. It had been improved a lot. So it basically, people never really saw this side of it. But when it launched, it was known to have had a lot of bugs and some problems, but they were able to fix them before the majority of people got into it. Oops. Yeah, some playtesters didn't check that little divot in the map. Oops. The people. Oh yeah, weird spawning issues with enemies that don't aggro. Even just when I was playing the other night, I ran into an issue where where certain enemies couldn't be dropped below max health. Like you could do whatever you wanted to them and they would just never take damage. Chopping away, chopping away. We'll get there eventually. Highest difficulty. You get there eventually. Yeah, by the way, if you're ever going to play The Witcher 3, play it on Death March. It's so much better. She never got dressed.
asked about you.
Oops.
The claimants to the throne was...
That's at least kind of a funny one. Even like 2 nights ago I was playing and I ran into a bug where Ciri in the flashbacks, her arm got stuck at like 45 degrees by default. So this is where her starting position was for all of her animations. And so she would like point to something in front of her and then her arm would clip into her face because this is where it was starting. It thought her arm was straight, but it was actually like this. So everywhere she moved after that was off. And like, that was just the other night. And so there's still occasionally some hiccups that you run into and things like that. But that's why looking back at it, it's like, oh yeah, Cyberpunk's issues, I guess, could have been foreseen because they had a history of releasing pretty buggy stuff, but we just all kind of collectively forgot about it. Is there an opposite of the Mandela effect? Is there like an inverse of that where something definitely happened, but everybody's convinced that it didn't? Is that a thing? Does anybody know? Because that seems to happen a lot with like BGS games. It happens a lot with a lot of these games that have red flags all over the place. You know, is that just the Mandela effect? It's the same thing. It's just denial. I guess you could say it's when a group of people share a common memory of something that didn't happen. But I guess this common memory would be that it released well and polished when it actually released buggy and broken. So I guess so. I guess it is the damn Mela effect. Oh man. Yeah, you can still see people. Yeah, I wonder why The Witcher 3 got a pass but never Cyberpunk. My best guess is hype it got for years and years and many delays. People were making expected polished game, but knowing about the crunch time. Part of it is, for one, the PS4 and Xbox One ports were like criminally bad. They were straight up unplayable and they were hidden from the public. So I think that that's a big part of it. Secondly, I think there was an issue with The Witcher 3. There were lots of bugs, but a lot of them were fixed by the time the majority of people played it. In like 2015, late 2015 to early 2016 is when the biggest surge of people hit it. So I think it's a mixture of things. This is still a bug. Yeah. There are also, just in case anybody goes back and tries to play The Witcher 3, NVIDIA Hairworks causes the game to crash randomly when interacting with your inventory. I was bashing my head up against the wall because I kept trying to put on a new armor set last night. And I was like, why does the game keep crashing? It kept crashing back to the desktop every time I tried to put it on. And it turned out it was because I had NVIDIA Hairworks on. And that apparently just breaks the game. It just can't handle it. So something to keep in mind. Hairworks breaks the game. But all of this to say, I'm a big old fan of The Witcher 3. But I think it's important to remember what it actually was, you know, not to twist it or misremember it for this reason or that reason, but to just actually look back at it honestly, because it was not like a perfect game. It didn't launch as a perfect, super polished game. Even now, it's got some hiccups. Even after the next gen update that they did, it still has some issues here and there, like the Hairworks thing. The fact that the Hairworks still crashes like crazy is ridiculous. Like, they should fix that. At least take NVIDIA Hairworks out, unless it's like a contracted thing where they can't take it out because NVIDIA signed a permanent deal with them. I don't know. Are you planning to play or review the Thaumaturge by Studio Fool's Theory that are making the Witcher 1 remake? I have bought the Thaumaturge and I have played a chunk of it. I haven't finished it or anything, but I have started it. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever make a video or anything, but the opposite of the Mandela effect is called cryptomnesia or cryptomnesia. Cryptomnesia. Oh. Cryptomnesia. Interesting. So that's the opposite. Now we know. The more you know. I did a recent playthrough on The Witcher 3, and what I do to balance the game leveling, I start a new game on Heart and Stone, and then max my character with console commands, and then I start New Game Plus. I can see that making things interesting. I will say, like, the whole reason I encourage everybody to go through on Death March is because when you go through on Death March, it kind of forces you to engage with all of the, like, oils, all of the potion crafting, all that stuff. I was talking to a friend of mine that went through all of The Witcher 3 without, like, any potions at all. He was like, yeah, I used food for healing and stuff. It was tough, but yeah, playing on normal, it wasn't that big of a deal. Especially once you upgrade Quen, like, it's not that big of a deal. I was like, Jesus, dude. Imagine going through all of The Witcher 3 without, like, using Swallow at all, without using, like, anything. Like, it's crazy. It's ridiculous. So I highly recommend you play on Death March, because Death March will force you to engage with every system. And by engaging with every system, I think you'll have a lot more fun. So that's what I would recommend. You just described me. Oops. He took my thing.